Hey guys, this is Brandy, otherwise known as Mystery of Diamonds, and welcome to my channel. If you're new here, hey y'all. Okay, so are we ready for another episode of Forensic Friday? I hope so, because I am. Now, for those that are new to my channel and have not seen a Forensic Friday episode before, the very first thing that I do is I tell you the answer to the mystery that I gave at the end of the Forensic Friday the last time. And so if you have not watched that and you don't want the answer spoiled, then you need to stop the video here, and I'm going to put in the eye right here that episode for the last Forensic Friday. So you'll go there and you'll watch that, and then come back to this so that you can be able to see what if your answer was true, because I am fixing to give the answer to the last mystery. Okay, and it had to do with the trucks. Y'all ready for the answer to the truck mystery? This one was kind of tough. You had to kind of think about it a little bit, but it was called microwaves on the freeway. So the stolen truckload did not get onto the freeway at the normal access because of the roadblock. Therefore, it must have used the alternate. To get through the underpass, the thieves let enough air out of the tires to lower the overall height of the truck. Because remember, the truck wasn't slow enough to go under the overpass regularly. And so Connie and Frank noticed the flatter tires on this one particular Byron truck. And so because it had lower tire pressure and that it was sitting lower to the ground, that's how they noticed right away that this was the stolen truck. So that was our mystery from the answer to mystery from the last Forensic Friday. So sorry. So we will be, the way that I do this now is that I will go into where I'm going to be diamond painting, and then I will do a voiceover that is telling about the episode of the forensic files that I'm going to go over, the case I'm going to go over, and then at the end I will give another mystery that you can comment on and try to see. So at present it kind of looks like, now I was gonna try to upload last week because I'm trying to do every other week right now until I can get caught up with schoolwork, and then I got sick, which just kind of made it go thanks to my son. I love my son. I love my son. Let's just stick that. But I did get sick, and so it kind of pushed everything back. So I'm going forward. I'm going to be trying to do a Forensic Friday every other week, and then if I can manage to get caught up and get enough recorded, then I will try to do one every week. But for right now, we are looking at every other week. But I'm excited. I hope that you're excited. So I'm going to get into the diamond painting portion of this, and then I will do the voiceover, and then I'll come back at the end to give you your mystery and end it. Okay, so let's get on to diamond painting and the case. Okay, the name of this episode was Sex, Lies, and DNA. While Earl Morris was vacationing in California, he learned his wife had been reported missing from their home in Arizona. The search for Ruby Morris involved dozens of police investigators, forensic scientists, DNA testing, and even the Coast Guard. The results of that investigation surprised everyone, especially Earl Morris. Ruby and Earl Morris were partners in both business and in marriage. They'd been married for over 20 years and were the parents of 3 grown children. The Morrises were both accountants and operated their own accounting and tax preparation firm. One of their family friends said that they had taken years and years to build up their business from scratch, and they were doing very well at it. So their business made them millionaires, and they raised their 3 children in a luxurious mountain home just outside of Phoenix. On June 4th, 1989, Earl Morris headed to California to see his oldest daughter, Donna Kay, perform in a concert. She was a country singer with a promising career. Ruby decided not to join her husband on their trip, planning instead to go shopping with her other daughter, Cindy, for some furniture for her new home. But Ruby didn't show up on Sunday morning at Cindy's home for the planned shopping trip, so Cindy drove out to her parents' home. Their friend Lily said it was totally unlike Ruby to miss a date with them, and even if she was gonna possibly miss, she would have called her and canceled, but she didn't do this. So Ruby Morris wasn't home. The burglar alarm was turned off, and Ruby's pocketbook was missing, but her car was still there, although it wasn't parked in its usual spot. Ruby Morris was a neat and meticulous person, and her daughter noticed right away that some things were out of place. A faucet was dripping in the bathtub, dirty clothes were piled high inside the washing machine and hadn't been washed, a carpet shampoo cleaner was left out. The most troubling discovery was that a .22 caliber pistol, usually kept in a closet, was missing. Cindy Morris immediately called the police. The sergeant on the case, I call him Sergeant Lee, because his last name is kind of difficult to say, but he said he only expected it to be a missing persons case, and that, he figured the person would be found in a couple of hours. So when Earl Morris heard news that his wife's disappearance, he told family members that he would head straight home from California. If Cindy Morris was right and something happened to her mother, investigators hoped to find some clues to her whereabouts inside the Morris home. It took Earl longer than anticipated to drive home from California, but when he arrived, the police were anxious to speak with him. Earl told police that the relationship was actually a good one, with occasional arguments, and there was nothing out of the ordinary. Morris also confirmed that the .22 caliber pistol that the couple owned was not in the closet where he last saw it. Sergeant Lee said that they were kind of going in a lot of different directions on this one, because they were looking at, was it a possible missing persons, was it a possible suicide, or was it a possible homicide? Earl told police that his car broke down on the drive home from California and that he rented a car to complete the trip. But Detective Lewinbull, see, that's why I call him Lee, Lewinbull, noticed something suspicious when he looked inside the trunk of the rental car. Attached to Earl's suitcase was an airline luggage tag for a recent flight from San Diego to Phoenix. A search of the passenger list from that flight did not include the name of Earl Morris, although there was a G. Norris listed. Police put together a group of photos, including one of Earl Morris, and showed it to the airline crew members to see if anyone recalled seeing Earl on that flight. One of the flight attendants remembered him distinctly because of the poor quality of his toupee. Faced with this inconsistency, detectives decided to search the Morris home further to see if there was any evidence of foul play, which might have been overlooked during their first visit. So Lee said they decided to have the ID techs go in and ask them to use luminol. When luminol is sprayed onto an area, a black light is used. The luminol will actually glow when it comes into contact with the blood enzymes. Forensic detectives began their search in the master bedroom, spraying luminol on the headboard of the bed. An area instantly turned blue. It was a very fine mist pattern, one that they immediately recognized. The forensic expert said that to him it looked as if basically based on the distribution, the shape, and the size of the blood droplets, that it was very high velocity, and usually you get high velocity with gunshots. Only a bullet produces a fine mist of blood similar to that was on the headboard. A beating or a stabbing is going to produce a much different pattern on the surface of the mattress. They also found tiny blood stains, and they also found blood inside the mattress itself. So next, investigators sprayed luminol in the bathroom. The entire shower stall lit up. Luminol tests also revealed blood on the cement patio outside the master bedroom, as well as the master bedroom carpet. When they did the luminol, Detective Lee or Sergeant Lee noticed that the whole bedroom floor, the carpet and everything, all started to glow. He said he knew that Sergeant Smith said that they knew from what they were seeing that they did actually have a violent crime scene here. At this point, maybe not necessarily a death, but somebody had definitely suffered there with a lot of different injuries. But detectives had no idea to whom the blood belonged to. To find out, scientists conducted a DNA test on the bloodstain. The results of that test shocked everyone. A deep, dark family secret would soon be revealed. Police suspected that the bloodstains found in the Morris bedroom belonged to Ruby Morris, but there was no blood from the body to match the blood in the bedroom. But science can often identify a bloodstain by using DNA testing. By analyzing the DNA from the children, for example, scientists can tell whether the bloodstains would have come from a parent. The forensic biologist Mark Stoilo said, in the case of children, 50% of the DNA from each child is going to come from one parent, and the other 50% will come from the other parent. So this, what they call obligated inheritance of DNA from the mother to children, is one of the most important factors that they're looking for when they're conducting this analysis. Since children get half of their DNA from their mother and the other half from their father, a DNA profile of the children and from one of the parents can give scientists enough genetic information to identify the DNA profile of the other parent even without a blood sample. If the DNA profile of the missing parent matches the DNA profile of the bloodstain, scientists will then analyze the DNA from the missing person's siblings in order to confirm their findings. When scientists compared Cindy Morris's DNA to the DNA of the bloodstain, they found one matching band. They also found one matching band when comparing the DNA profile of Ruby's brother to the bloodstain. So basically what they were doing is when they took DNA profile off of Cindy, her daughter, the fact that there was a matching band there was like, okay, so this is showing that there is something from this mother to the child. And then to also compare, they took Ruby's brother, and he also had a band in common. So then that also shows family linkage right there. And so that gave them two things to look at. The forensic expert believed that it was highly probable, based off this, that the bloodstains actually came from Ruby Morris. But scientists noticed something peculiar when they compared Earl Morris's DNA to the DNA profile of his daughter Cindy. There were no matching bands. Earl Morris was not Cindy's biological father. When they compared Earl's DNA to his oldest child, Randy, they discovered the same thing. Earl was not Randy's biological father either. Randy's DNA matched that of his grandfather, his mother's father. When law enforcement authorities in Tennessee learned of these DNA results, Ruby's father was charged with incest. According to the DNA test, Ruby's father had sex with her when she was just 15 years old. Bill Clayton, who's the prosecutor, said, they definitely got a surprise on this. He thought that maybe the family would be surprised by it, and that Earl himself was surprised by it. The Morris children had another family secret to reveal. They admitted that their mother had been depressed recently, since she learned her husband Earl was having an affair with her sister Peggy. In fact, Ruby and her daughter Cindy once caught the two together at the Phoenix airport when Peggy flew to Phoenix to meet with Earl. Ruby confronted Earl about the affair, but he reportedly refused to end it. Sergeant Lee said that they were looking at Peggy because she had motive. She had opportunity to be involved in this. She lived in Louisiana at the time, but they discovered that she had planned to go on vacation to San Diego, that weekend so that she could meet up with Earl, and they discovered that phone calls from Earl were made to her during this. Peggy admitted to police that she'd planned to meet Earl in San Diego shortly after Ruby disappeared, but missed her flight. But police knew Earl had been in San Diego not only because of the baggage claim tag on his suitcase, but they also found his car in the airport parking lot. The car appeared to be clean, but when luminol was applied to the inside of the vehicle, the floor of the passenger side revealed a huge blood stain. So much blood that the individual it came from would almost certainly be dead. A DNA analysis of the blood in the car revealed that it matched the blood stain found in the Morris' bedroom, which scientists concluded belonged to Ruby. Sergeant Lee said they didn't know where the body was. They didn't know, if he would have transported the body to San Diego. Why would they do that? They didn't have any real clue. The clue was here, in a San Diego marina. The Morrises owned a boat which was stored at the marina. The marina employees told police that Earl was at the marina on June 5th and had taken the boat for a ride. When police went to search the boat, they discovered that it was missing. The Coast Guard was asked to help locate the missing boat, and they told police about a mysterious fire on a boat about the same size which burned and sank 13 miles offshore from the San Diego marina. A news crew had actually captured video, and they said that Dan Torpy, the Coast Guard, said that they didn't see any survivors. There was no people anywhere in sight. And he said the first thing that was unusual was the way that the boat was burned, because it was actually burning from the center outwards. And normally whenever fires start, they start in the engine room or in the fuel compartment, towards the ends of the boat and not in the middle. So right away it looked very suspect. The things that stood out also was that they found that there was a lantern right in the middle of the boat on top of the melted fiberglass, which looked like somebody had thrown it there and possibly started a fire. Remember, they could see this because they have video from the news crews of the boat actually burning. So they were able to analyze that and see that lantern there on the top. Records indicated that Earl rented a small boat on the morning of June 5th and returned it around 12 noon, about the same time that the Coast Guard discovered the burning boat. It was beginning to appear that the body of Ruby Morris was on that burning boat, which sank to the bottom of the Pacific Ocean. But prosecutors believed that they still had enough evidence to prove Ruby Morris had been murdered. The prosecutor said think about all the different stuff that you have. You have Ruby Morris's blood. You have her bed, blood on her bed. You have high velocity blood spatter from a gunshot that would have killed her. Earl Morris was charged with the murder of his wife Ruby, but the case was far from over. Investigators were in for another big surprise. Earl's defense would be a challenge for forensic science. In 1991, Earl Morris went to trial for the murder of his wife. The prosecution first had to convince the jury that a murder had taken place since there was no body. According to the prosecution, Earl entered the master bedroom early on Saturday morning, June 4th. He shot his wife and dragged her body into an adjacent bathroom, removed her clothing, and put her into the bathtub to remove the blood. He then dressed her body in a jogging suit, covered her head wound with a baseball cap, and carried the body to the garage. Since his car didn't have a trunk, he had no choice but to place the body into the passenger side of the front seat. Earl then cleaned all of the blood from inside the house, from the headboard, the bathroom, the carpets, all later revealed by the luminol. Earl began his journey to San Diego, driving nearly 400 miles with his wife's body in the seat next to him. Blood continued to drip from the head wound, falling to the floor beneath the seat, later discovered by the luminol test. Earl stopped once for gas, and no one noticed that his passenger was dead. When Morris arrived in San Diego, he towed his boat to the launch and in broad daylight placed Ruby's body on the boat along with some of the bloody sheets and the murder weapon. He also took a lantern and some gasoline. After renting a smaller boat, he set off to sea, towing the rented boat behind. 13 miles offshore in the Pacific Ocean, Earl Morris prepared the boat for destruction, hoping to bury not only his wife's body, but all of the remaining evidence of his involvement. After dousing the boat with gasoline, he stepped into the rental boat, lit the lantern, and threw it onto the deck. He left before being spotted by the Coast Guard. Sometime after Morris left the scene, a news crew captured video of the boat while it was still on fire, minutes before it sank. Neither Ruby Morris nor the boat was ever recovered. During the trial, Earl delivered a surprising defense. He admitted that his wife was dead and that her body was indeed on the boat that burned and sank. Morris also admitted to setting the fire and sinking the boat, but he insisted he did not kill his wife. He said she committed suicide because of guilt and depression. Guilt over the fact that her husband wasn't the father of 2 of their children, and depression about Earl's affair with her sister Peggy. Earl Morris testified that he discovered his wife with a gunshot wound in her left temple and that she used the couple's .22 caliber pistol. He said he found her body after the suicide and feared he would be blamed, so he disposed of the body by sinking the boat. But the forensic evidence proved otherwise. The blood spatter evidence told forensic detectives that Ruby could not have committed suicide. Earl said the gunshot wound was in the left side of her head, but Ruby was right-handed. It would have been impossible for a right-handed individual to shoot herself in the left temple using her right hand, especially with a long-barrel .22 caliber pistol the Morrises owned. But the strangest argument came from the blood spatter evidence on the headboard. The blood patterns revealed 2 layers of spatter, one on top of the other. This told forensic experts that there were 2 shots, and a person committing suicide does not shoot twice to the head. The jury saw Earl Morris's last-minute claim of suicide as just one more lie. He was convicted of murder and sentenced to 25 years to life. Okay, well, I'm going to end this here. You can see how much I've gotten done. I only have, I think, 1, 2, 3 colors left to finish this section. This is, in case you're wondering, this is the Dripping Rainbow, excuse me, from DP Wood Sparklers, and I am having so much fun working on it. I love being able to have these different ABs and rhinestones and just a combination and regular drills. Oh, I just love it. Okay, so are we ready for your mystery? Here we go. Okay, so let's get into the mystery. Hold on, let me get that. Okay. Says, especially in the bright morning sun, the red Jeep wagon seemed much too sporty a presence to be a suicide vehicle. It was a very shiny metallic red with roof rack and little plastic streamers on the radio aerial, mud flaps behind all 4 tires, and a gleaming chrome trailer hitch. The total effect said sports person, or camper, or hiker. Someone in love with life and adventure, yet sometime in the past few hours, the Jeep had served an entirely opposite purpose. From where he stood on a knoll just behind it, Francis Creamer could see one of the bodies slumped over the steering wheel. There was another he knew. The patrolman had said a couple. Lovers, probably. Young people often spent the evening hours here on Midland Ridge. It was a popular place to park. It was private, romantic, and just far enough away from town. Creamer walked down to the Jeep where several policemen were waiting for him. The ambulance attendants, fully aware now that any emergency had long since passed, had turned off their flashing lights and were leaning against their vehicle. Nothing has been touched, sir. The youngest policeman was speaking to Creamer. I've been here since we called you. Creamer nodded. You've got pictures of this? He had put his fingers around the piece of vacuum cleaner hose that ran from the exhaust pipe of the Jeep through a hole in the back window. Yeah, we got lots of shots, Frank. It was Zerlo, the senior uniformed man present and an acquaintance of Creamer's. Do you want to know what angles? Not now, Creamer replied. It looks like a pretty straightforward suicide. We probably won't even need what you have. He worked a loose piece of masking tape from the edge of the back window with his thumbnail and peeled off a long strip. They must have used a whole roll of this stuff, he commented, mostly to himself, as he ran his fingers over the tape that covered the edges of the hole where the hose fed into the window. All of the windows were taped as well. So much had been used that where the hose met the exhaust pipe that it appeared as though someone had joined the two with a baseball. Zerlo spoke again. Pentland here found them at first light. He nodded at the young policeman. We called the wagon first. This time he nodded at the ambulance, but then it was pretty obvious that this was your bailiwick, so you were next. Nothing else has been done yet. Oh, except the license check. He took out a little notepad. Vehicles owned by one Owen P. Riggio, 219A First Avenue. That's probably him there. Francis Creamer made himself look inside the Jeep. Almost 30 years as an investigator from the county coroner's office had not hardened him to death even a little. The man slumped over the steering wheel was likely in his mid-30s, Creamer thought. He forced himself to look closer. Whether or not the man was Owen P. Riggio, he certainly appeared to have died from carbon monoxide poisoning. The cherry-red lips suggested that. The other body was that of a woman. Creamer could see her light blonde hair, but couldn't see her lips because her body had slumped off the passenger seat and partially onto the floor where it leaned awkwardly against the door. He suspected her lips, too, would be cherry-red. He picked at the end of a strip of masking tape on the driver's door until he had loosened a corner, then began to peel off the strip that covered the crack between the door and the frame. Do the tape on the passenger side, please, Zerlo, Francis Creamer said, but don't open the door. She'll fall out. We'll work from this side. Zerlo went to do his part. Creamer opened the driver's door very carefully. The silence of the death inside seemed to affect everything on the outside, too. No one talked or even coughed. The birds seemed to have disappeared. A cloud momentarily blocked the sun, making the scene even more tense. There's a note beside the gear shift, Zerlo announced, breaking the spell. All the policemen, the ambulance attendants, and even Creamer began to breathe more slowly. One of the policemen came over for a closer look. I didn't see that, sir, the young one again. It doesn't matter, Creamer told him. They were dead anyway. He took a small leather case out of the inside jacket pocket, unzipped it, and extracted a tweezer. He handed the case to the policeman and, holding his breath, reached over the dead man to pull out the note. Come here, he said to Zerlo. Look at this. Zerlo came around to the driver's side where Creamer had set the note on the fender and began to read aloud as though for the benefit of the others. Tell everyone we're sorry, but this is the only way. Jana, you would not agree to a divorce, and Merle and I will not go on without each other. Owen. Zerlo read it a second time, this time in silence. Well, that should explain the who and the why, he said to Creamer. With a half wave at the Jeep, he continued, and we certainly know the how and where. Now, who gets to tell this Jana her husband has committed suicide along with his lover? Francis Creamer gave a long laugh. I rather think that Jana might know more about this than we do, he said. In any case, we had better talk to her first before we draw any conclusions about the how of this case. This was not a suicide. What convinced Francis Creamer to look for something other than suicide as the cause of death? So, that is our mystery for this episode. So what I want you to do in the comments, I'd love for you to be able to comment on the case and what you thought. Also, I'd love to hear what you think is the answer. What made them think that it's not a suicide? What clues did they give? Now remember, I will still read your comments and I'll tell you if I think it's an interesting thing, but I'm not going to tell you if you're correct or not, because you'll need to watch the next Forensic Friday to see if you are correct on what you think happened in the mystery. All right, well, that's all I have for you, so I'm going to leave you like I always do. Reach for the stars, grab hold on, and never let go. Until my next video, bye guys.